Hi, everyone. I'm really excited and kind of nervous to be here today. My lighting is terrible. I have this equipment, and I decided, you know what? Let me just go for it because this is too exciting and important. So, this is my coming out video, not as trans, but as something called Twice Exceptional, which you're going to see a lot more of on this channel. There are tons of definitions from the research, from clinicians, psychologists, from people, providers, especially people who work with kids, school age kids. Um, but I want to claim that as an identity for myself and as something that a label that has let me hold the good things about myself and the things I am proud of, as well as the things I struggle with. You'll see there's a messy desk over here. Um, so, whatever it is professionally, what it means to me is that I have some diagnoses. I had a lot of surgeries as a kid, and from that, I have PTSD. I have a lot of trauma that I am still working through. I'm in therapy still, and probably will be forever. Um, and actually, I think that's a good thing. It helps me. It's not always a crisis. The other thing so I also have ADHD, and that's something that I've told my students before. It's easy to admit. It's sort of, oh, I'm the quirky kid who can't get organized, and I struggle, but it's all good because it's no big deal. It is a big deal, or it has been for me, and I'm kind of jealous of the people who were able to figure it out earlier on in life. As a trans person, I grew up as a girl, and I wasn't a behavior problem, so I wasn't noticed, and I was gifted in some way. I was identified as gifted. So as long as my academics were fine, you know what? No one, they cared, but they didn't have the tools to help me with the social emotional side of things, with the mental health, as we would call it. And I'm trying not to call it kind of side. The other thing, and this is the scarier one to admit, that maybe some people, if they find this, will say, I'm not hiring this person. And you know what? That's okay. It's too important. Is that I'm bipolar, and um, and that's been hard. I've had some incidents, episodes, and they are a big part of my narrative, especially when I have those automatic scripts going on in my head. I'm a bad person. I'm unlovable. I'm all these things. It tends to be much easier for me to focus on the mental health side of things, the exceptionality in Twice Exceptional. That means that I struggle. Um, but And I've really been able to see this through the students I teach because it's a lot easier to see the good in other people than in ourselves sometimes. I am also a PhD student and a really engaged and excited and happy one for once. I'm a storyteller. I've had lots of different jobs, and I've found that you find your people. I all these I used to say, oh yeah, I'm ADHD. I have all these different interests. Yeah, I don't really get into things deeply, and that's just not true. So I've had the blessing of just having a huge range of people in my life from around the world with my languages, from around different social groups, different races, different languages, again, um, different neurologies, different everything. And I've learned something so much and just lived so much with all of that, and I love it. Um, I do storytelling, I do other things. But the basic thing is that it's not this tortured artist kind of thing. It's not this, romantic thing. It's really hard to have that struggling exceptionality. But I really do think it's a yes and situation. So this is game and improv where you say you accept whatever situation your improv partner has given you, and you say yes, no matter how crazy it is. You say yes and you go with it. You don't shut them down. You don't say, well, all this stuff, your child, you are all these bad things, or you are all these good things, but, and then people wait for the other shoe to drop. They say, hey, they don't listen to all the good stuff, and they say, okay, this is the real story about me, about my kid, about whoever it is, about this student that I'm going to have next year. And people learn with those big files that we have in the school office, people learn to say, oh, well, I'm only going to listen to the bad stuff. And I did that for a while. I couldn't hold the fact that I have gifts. That's the other exceptionality. And that I'm different in a creative way, in a thinking differently kind of way, in a caring about my teaching kind of way. So, yeah, this is a one take video. I'm not even editing it. But I guess I wanted to just introduce the real, or the full, rather, not the real, the full kind of side of things and where I'm coming from. I've taught Twice Exceptional, mostly kids, also adults, professionally. But I wanted to bring out the personal, like I do already in my teaching. I want to bring out the fact that if you're feeling like, oh, I have all these problems, I don't function as an adult, I have so much, people told me I have so much potential, but, I'm not realizing it, I'm a failure, I'm all these things. There's all these narratives that we get from society, from schools, from ourselves eventually, because we internalize them. And I want to be one of the people who says, hey, I am this, and it's working out pretty well. It's hard, but it's also exciting. I get to enter into people's worlds, these crazy, fascinating, really rich worlds that people like me, TUI people, and other people too, come up with in their heads and are able to express in some way, maybe not verbally, maybe not with a big social group of people, but still in a really powerful human way, giving the human side to ideas that can be really abstract. That's a gift that I've seen a lot in my students, and that at least I've been told that I can do myself as well. So this is getting a little bit long, but I wanted to do this just to say, yeah, if you're an adult watching this, whether or not you have the TUI, the Twice Exceptional label, the tagline I often use for people is that we're the people who love learning and hate school. There's more to it than that, of course, but probably some people here can connect with that. And I want to encourage you to listen to other folks, to share stories, to, to the extent that you can, to let in that you are good fundamentally and exciting and, have a lot to offer. And I don't mean that in this sort of fake, well, broken people have redeeming qualities too. I mean it fully. I mean it with all my heart and my head. And I want people to just let it out. Let it hang out, not in the audience is my therapist kind of way, but just in a way where you say, hey, this is all of me, or this is what of me that I can share right now. And I'm offering a lot to the world. I can be of service, I can be of use, I can share something that people will recognize and see our commonness or commonality. And the main thing, I guess I have a lot of main things. It's not an ADD thing. It's just a me thing. Is that we don't have to be alone. We're not alone. There are other people like me. I know that now, professionally, but also personally. There are other people like us, if you're watching this and resonating. And clinical is not the only framework. There's a yes and situation where we may need care. We may have crises sometimes. There's a whole lot more to this story. And since most people, I find when they come to me, especially as TUI adults, have so focused on the hard part of the story, the failure, the trauma, all this stuff, just give it a try. Do one of those experiments that a lot of people like us are really drawn to, and try out the idea, what if I'm a great person? What if I have a lot to offer? What stories, what evidence do I have? Because we also often like evidence and data. What evidence do I have for myself? Maybe start out with what evidence do I have from other people, because it's hard to dredge it up from ourselves. What evidence do I have that I can do things, that I have followed through, that I do have grit and resilience and tenacity? What evidence do I have that I have lots of things to hope for? And I hope that as time goes on over here, and also as things change, just in the wider world of neurodiverse people, there will be more out there to share about people like us. And I thank you. I hope we stick around. I hope we stick around for a while. I hope we get to have a conversation, and most of all, I hope that you find and I find community and recognition and connection over who we are, and not who people tell us or who the internal voice in our head tells us we are on our bad days. I'll see you soon.